EFL Cup, Wikipedia audio. The EFL Cup, currently known as the Carabao Cup for sponsorship reasons, is an annual knockout football competition in men's domestic English football. Organised by the English Football League, it is open to any club within the top 4 levels of the English Football League system, 92 clubs in total comprising the top-level Premier League, and the 3 divisions of the English Football League's own league competition. First held in 1960-61 as the Football League Cup, it is one of the 3 top-tier domestic football competitions in England, alongside the Premier League and FA Cup. It concludes in February, long before the other 2, which end in May. It was introduced by the league as a response to the increasing popularity of European football, and to also exert power over the FA. It also took advantage of the rollout of floodlights, allowing the fixtures to be played as midweek evening games. With the renaming of the Football League as the English Football League in 2016, the tournament was rebranded as the EFL Cup from the 2016-17 season onwards. The tournament is played over 7 rounds, with single-leg ties throughout, except the semi-finals. The final is held at Wembley Stadium. It is the only tie in the competition played at a neutral venue and on a weekend. Entrants are seeded in the early rounds, and a system of byes based on league level ensures higher-ranked teams enter in later rounds, and to defer the entry of teams still involved in Europe. Winners receive the EFL Cup, of which there have been 3 designs, the current one also being the original. Winners also qualify for European football with a place in the UEFA Europa League, although this place is transferred to the highest-placed Premier League team not already qualified for European competition, should the winner also qualify for Europe through other means at the end of the season. The current holders are Manchester City, who beat Arsenal 3-0 in the 2018 final to win their 5th League Cup. Status. Although the League Cup is one of the 4 domestic trophies attainable by English league teams, it is perceived as a lower priority cup than the League Championship or the FA Cup. The 4th domestic trophy, the Community Shield, is a one-match event. League Cup winners receive £100,000 prize money, with the runners-up receiving £50,000, considered relatively insignificant to top-flight teams, compared to the £2 million prize money of the FA Cup, which is in turn eclipsed by the Premier League's television money and consequent participation in the Champions League. Some clubs have repeatedly fielded a weaker side in the competition, making the opportunity for giant killing of the larger clubs more likely. Many teams in the Premier League, Arsenal and Manchester United in particular, have used the competition to give young players valuable big game experience. However, in 2010, in response to Arsene Wenger's claim that a League Cup win would not end his trophy drought, Alex Ferguson described the trophy as a pot worth winning. Most tournament wins, 8 wins. Liverpool, most final appearances, 12, Liverpool, most tournament wins, 5, Ian Rush for Liverpool, most final appearances, 6, Ian Rush for Liverpool and Emile Heskey for Leicester City, Liverpool and Aston Villa, most semi-final appearances, 17, Liverpool, highest goal scorer, Jeff Hurst, Ian Rush 49 goals, highest goal scorer, Clive Allen, for Tottenham Hotspur, 12 goals in 1986-87, most goals scored in a match, 6 goals, by Frankie Bunn for Oldham Athletic vs Scarborough. October 25, 1989, biggest win, Liverpool 10-0 Fulham, second round first leg, September 23, 1986 and West Ham United 10-0 Bury, second round second leg, October 25, 1983, biggest aggregate win in a semi-final, Manchester City 9-0 West Ham United, January 2014, biggest win in a final, Swansea City 5-0 Bradford City, February 24, 2013, highest scoring game, Reading 5-7 Arsenal, 4th round, October 30, 2012 and Dagenham and Redbridge 6-6 Brentford, 1st round, August 12, 2014, most penalties in a deciding penalty shootout. 32 Derby County 14-13 Carlisle United, youngest player, Ashley Chambers, 15 years 203 days, for Leicester City vs Blackpool, 2005, youngest goal scorer in the final, Norman Whiteside, 17 years 324 days, for Manchester United vs Liverpool, 1983, youngest captain in the final, Barry Venison, 20 years, 7 months 8 days, for Sunderland vs Norwich City, 1985. The original idea for a League Cup came from Stanley Rouse, who saw the competition as a consolation for clubs who had already been knocked out of the FA Cup. However, it was not Rouse who came to implement it, but Football League secretary Alan Hardaker. Hardaker initially proposed the competition as a way for the clubs to make up on lost revenue, due to a reduction in matches played, for when the league was to be reorganized. The reorganization of the league was not immediately forthcoming, however, the cup competition was introduced regardless. The trophy was paid for personally by Football League president Joe Richards, who was proud of the competition and he had his own name engraved on it. Richards described the competition's formation as an interim step on the way to the league's reorganization. Richards' priority was the reorganization of the leagues, perhaps by cutting down the number of clubs in each division, as has already been suggested, and even given more consideration to the system of 4 up and 4 down. Hardaker felt that the Football League needed to adapt to the times, as the English game was losing prestige. He felt that the Football League should take the lead in revitalizing football in the nation. It must be obvious to all of you that the time has come to do something, and it is up to the Football League to give the lead. I hope the press will not immediately assume that the league is going to fall out with the FA or anybody else. The time has come for our voice to be heard in every problem which affects the professional game. The League Cup competition was established at a time when match day attendances were dwindling. The league had lost 1 million spectators compared to the previous season. It was established at a time when tensions between the Football League and the Football Association were high. The biggest disagreement was about how revenue was shared between the clubs. During the late 1950s, the majority of senior English clubs equipped their grounds with floodlights. This opened up the opportunity to exploit weekday evenings throughout the winter. The League Cup was introduced in the 1960-61 season specifically as a midweek floodlit tournament, to replace the Southern Professional Floodlit Cup. The League Cup was criticized by the better endowed clubs. The Times correspondent at the time felt that the League Cup was a step in the wrong direction. The European Cup had been formed 5 years prior to the League Cup, and the correspondent felt the League Cup's introduction was adding to existing problems. The Times published on May 30, 1960, where a drastic reduction is required in an attempt to raise quality, no doubt quantity and a further spread of mediocrity will be the dose. Where men like Count Bernabeu with his wider horizons, think in terms of a European League for the future in which a lead could surely now be given jointly by our leaders, the Football League propose next season to implement their useless Football League Cup to be played in midweek. It gets the players, the clubs, and the public nowhere. Aston Villa were the inaugural winners in 1960-61, defeating Rotherham United 3-2 in the final over 2 legs. Football in England was considered to be of a low quality, compared to what was being played on the continent, as relatively unfashionable clubs Burnley and Wolverhampton Wanderers were England's representatives in Europe that year, having lifted the major honours ahead of much bigger clubs like Arsenal and Manchester United. Richards referred to the appetite for European football as continental fever. He was keen for the league to re-establish itself. We must be prepared to put the interests of the league and the game before individual clubs. 16 clubs opposed the competition's creation, 31 approved it. The average attendance across the League Cup was 10,556, just higher than the average gate in the third division. The total attendance of the Football League competition had fallen by 4 million from the previous season. Richards is reputed to have told Hardaker that he foresaw the League Cup final being held at Wembley, but that it wouldn't be during his lifetime. The first League Cup final to be held at Wembley was 3rd Division Queen's Park Rangers' win over 1st Division West Bromwich Albion on March 4, 1967. Richards died in 1968. History. The first League Cup was won in 1960-61 by Aston Villa who, at the time, held the overall record for major trophies won in England. The next 3 finals, however, saw the trophy won by clubs who had never won a major trophy before. One of them, Norwich City, had yet to even play in the first division, while their opponents Rochdale had played no higher than the 3rd division. The introduction of the League Cup gave the Football League more negotiating power with the FA and UEFA. Hardaker threatened UEFA with a boycott of the UEFA Cup, unless UEFA gave the League Cup winner European qualification. As a result of the negotiating tactics, UEFA provided the League Cup winner with a place in the European competitions, providing the team was in the first division. Tottenham Hotspur were the first team to qualify for Europe by virtue of winning the competition. Although Leeds United had won the competition before Tottenham, Leeds qualified for Europe based on league position. The winners of the 1966-67 and 1968-69 editions QPR and Swindon Town did not participate in Europe, as they were not in the first division. Prior to the agreement with UEFA, the competition was not considered worthy of the larger clubs' attention. However, once a position in Europe was on offer, as was a final at Wembley Stadium, the competition's standing was improved, and in the 1968-69 season only Manchester United declined to participate. Everton chose not to compete in 1970-71 so that they could concentrate their efforts on the European Cup. Entry was made compulsory for all Football League teams the following year. Liverpool have won the Cup on the most occasions with 8 victories, including winning their 4 League Cups in successive years in the early 1980s. They completed 2 trebles of trophy wins, in 1983-84 and 2000-01, winning the League Cup in both of these years. English clubs lost their place in European competitions for an indefinite period in 1985 as a result of the Heysel disaster, where Liverpool fans had taken part in a riot at the European Cup final, resulting in the death of 39 spectators. That year's winners of the League Cup were Norwich City, who would otherwise have played in a European competition for the first time in the 1985-86 season. Oxford United, Arsenal, Luton Town and Nottingham Forest also missed out on the chance to compete in the UEFA Cup as League Cup holders over the next 4 years. Even when the ban was lifted in 1990, League Cup winners did not participate in European competitions for 2 more years, when Manchester United won the trophy and qualified for the UEFA Cup anyway, as they had finished second in the league. In the previous 2 seasons, Nottingham Forest and Sheffield Wednesday had both been prevented from competing in the UEFA Cup as League Cup winners, due to the gradual reintegration of English clubs in European competitions. In 2016-17, the competition was renamed the EFL Cup as part of the Football League's rebranding to become the English Football League. In the early 21st century, following restructuring of European football, and particularly its international club competitions the UEFA Champions League and Europa League, there were considerations of removing the prize of European qualification from the League Cup's winners. It has retained its Europa League berth, however, leaving England the only UEFA member aside from France to offer a European berth to the winners of their second cup competitions. This has allowed the League Cup to retain popularity, especially with fans of clubs for whom success in cup competitions offers their only realistic chance of qualifying for Europe. Modern changes. Giant killings. Giant killings are less well remembered in the League Cup than the FA Cup due to the absence of non-league sides and the fact that many big clubs have fielded very understrength sides when knocked out. However, there have been some notable upsets, such as 4th Division side Chester knocking league champions Leeds United out 3-0 en route to the semi-finals in 1974-75. In 1995-96, Manchester United were beaten 3-0 at home by York City in the second round. First leg, United could only win 3-1 in the second leg and went out 4-3 on aggregate. Also, the final of 1966-67 saw Division 3 side Queen's Park Rangers come from 2-0 down at half-time to win 3-2 against top-flight West Bromwich Albion in the first League Cup final to be hosted at Wembley Stadium. 2 years later in 1968-69, 3rd Division side Swindon Town beat Arsenal 3-1 after extra time in the final to win the trophy. Format. Final. Results by club. Sponsorship. Trophy. Manchester United have also been knocked out by Southend United and Coventry City in 2006-07 and 2007-08 respectively. In the match against Southend they fielded a strong side with 10 internationals, bucking a trend they had themselves started. In the 2014-15 season, Manchester United fielded 5 international players but lost 4-0 in the second round against third-tier side MK Dons. In 2001-02, holders Liverpool were defeated 2-1 at home by Grimsby Town, then humbled again by Northampton Town in September 2010. Grimsby recorded another giant killing in 2005 by knocking out Tottenham Hotspur. In the 2012-13 competition, League Two side Bradford City knocked out Premier League sides Wigan and Arsenal en route to a semi-final disposal of another top-tier side, Aston Villa, 4-3 on aggregate, to reach the final, becoming the lowest-ranked team to do so since Rochdale in 1961-62. Swansea City, in their centenary year, became the first team from outside England to win the League Cup on February 24, 2013, when they beat Bradford City 5-0 to win their first major English trophy. Former league club and now defunct Scarborough defeated Chelsea 4-3 on aggregate in October 1989, while a Division 4 club. In 1992-93, Scarborough then defeated Coventry City 3-2 on aggregate, before ultimately going out of the competition, narrowly, 1-0, against Arsenal. The League Cup is open to all 92 members of the Premier League and English Football League and is divided into 7 rounds, organised so that 32 teams remain by the third round. Since 1996-97, teams involved in European competition during the season have received a bye to the third round. The remaining Premier League teams enter at the second round, and the remaining Football League teams enter at the first round. If the number of byes causes an odd number of teams to enter a round, another team may be given a bye or a preliminary round may be played between the two teams promoted from the Football Conference the previous season. Preliminary rounds have only been necessary in the 2002-03 and 2011-12 competitions. Up to 1995-96, all teams were involved by the second round, although some received byes to that stage. Records. Matches in all rounds are single-legged, except for the semi-finals, which have been two-legged since the competition began. The final was two-legged from 1961 to 1966, but has been single-legged ever since. The first round was two-legged from 1975-76 to 2001, and the second round was two-legged from 1979-80 to 2001. Single-legged matches would be replayed as necessary until 1993-94, when penalties were introduced to settle the first replay. The last single-legged tie to require a replay was played in 1996-97. Until 1974-75, two-legged ties that remained level after extra time in the second leg would be replayed. In that time, 3 ties reached a third replay. Between 1975-76 and 1979-80, ties would still be replayed, but a penalty shootout would be used to settle ties that could not be decided after a replay. Replays of two-legged matches were finally abolished for 1980-81, with the away goals rule and penalties being adopted instead. The semi-finals were the exception to this, with level ties being replayed until 1986-87, after which the away goals rule and penalties were introduced. For the first 6 seasons of the Football League Cup, the final was played over 2 legs, with each leg being played at the home ground of each finalist. Since 1967, the final has been played as a single match at Wembley Stadium, although the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff was used between 2001 and 2007, following the demolition of the old Wembley. Between 1967 and 1997, finals that finished level after extra time would be replayed at an alternative venue until a winner was decided. The only final to require 2 replays was the 1977 final between Aston Villa and Everton. The venues that hosted replays were Hillsborough Stadium in Sheffield, Old Trafford and Main Road in Manchester and Villa Park in Birmingham. Since 1998, finals that have finished level after extra time have been decided by penalty shootout. Until 1999-2000, the final was played in late March or early April. Thereafter it has been played in late February or early March. Since 1989-90, the best player in the League Cup final as chosen by the Sky Sports television panel has been presented with the Alan Hardaker Trophy, named after Alan Hardaker, the former secretary of the Football League who devised the Football League Cup. John Terry and Ben Foster are the only players to win the award more than once. From 1981 to the present, the League Cup has attracted title sponsorship, which meant, unlike its older sibling the FA Cup, the League Cup was named after its sponsor, giving it the following names. The winners receive the EFL Cup, of which there have been 3 designs, the current one also being the original, a 3-handled Georgian-style urn with a separate plinth. Designed and manufactured by Mappin and Webb, it weighs 2.976 kilograms and measures 27 centimeters by 20.5 centimeters. It is worth around £20,000. It was used until the 1980-81 competition, before coming back into use ever since the 1990-91 competition. The reason for the break in usage was the introduction for the first time of a competition sponsor, the Milk Marketing Board, who chose to award their own trophy from 1981-82 to 1985-86. The next sponsor, Littlewoods, also chose to award their own trophy, from 1986-87 until 1989-90. Later sponsors have used the original. As of 2016,